Hiya. Let us do another video. Thank you for being here. I hope you're well. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to get right into it because I want to talk about this. I talked about the Creature's Feast, I don't know, a couple days ago, a week ago. I don't know. I lose track of time. And I thought rather than just power through a band's recorded output like I have in the past chronologically by year. I'm just going to talk about my favorites first and go from there. I talked about Feast because that's one of my favorite Siouxsie related albums, and now I'm going to talk about my favorite Siouxsie and the Banshees album, which is Peepshow. Yes. Let me take it out of its sleeve. I noticed there's a little glare there. Sorry about that. Here we go. This is my favorite Siouxsie album. Siouxsie and the Banshees. I know I'm talking about the Creatures too. Obviously those are Siouxsie albums, but this is my favorite Siouxsie and the Banshees proper album. Peep Show. And I know this is just an opinion. This is why I have my channel. I blurt out opinions. I understand people are going to have other favorites from Siouxsie and the Banshees, and I would love to hear what your favorites are, because the fact is, Siouxsie and the Banshees, and the Creatures for that matter, have never released a bad album. Siouxsie doesn't have a bad speed. I talked about this in the Creatures album. I mean, do you know Siouxsie to release anything that's less than interesting? I don't think she's capable of being boring in any way. And Siouxsie and the Banshees, I mean, all of their, I'm not trying to denigrate any of their other albums. I think every single Siouxsie and the Banshees album is excellent. They've never done anything less than that. Every album. And this is my favorite. So obviously this album means a lot to me. And I think I gravitate toward this album maybe for unfair reasons. I get nostalgic about it. This album came out in 1988 when I was 15 years old. So 15 is a really awesome, magical year to be experiencing new music. You're still getting your head wrapped around how the world works and how music works and how movies work and how art in general works. So it's a fun time and a very nostalgic time for me to reminisce about. And so when I think of some of my favorite albums of my life, I usually kind of gravitate toward late 80s, early 90s era music. So maybe I'm unfairly judging this, but I don't care. The Peep Show is my favorite Siouxsie album. I absolutely love this record. I think everything that they did so brilliantly came together on this record. You get the pop, you get the punk, you get the weirdness, you get the ambience. It just all came together here. I think there's an argument that Superstition arguably is their best album. I think a lot of people might say Superstition. I understand. I would understand anybody saying any Siouxsie album is their favorite. But for me, I feel like everything came together here. All of their influences, all the things they did, all of the messages they imparted toward people. This is where it all came together. Peep Show. I think this has some of the greatest pop hits. It has some of their weirdest tracks. It has some of their most rhythmic and powerful and intense tracks. It's all here and it all flows. I don't know that all Siouxsie and the Banshees albums always perfectly flowed for my taste, but from start to finish, I feel like Peep Show just works. It does nothing but work. It's a really brilliant album, and this is just by far my favorite record from them. This is the original copy that I purchased back. I think I bought it in 1988. It's got a promo stamp down here, so I would think that maybe this is something I picked up at the used record store. Back in the old days, that's how old I am now, but back in the 80s, DJs would get these promo copies and they wouldn't even play them. They'd just take them to the used record store and they'd sell them. And the record store would sell them as used, but you're really getting a new album. I was looking at this record and I don't know, I think maybe I've played this 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times in my life. I have multiple copies of this, so I think the other copies that I have, I played those much more. Because when I was looking at this, I was like, wow, I don't know that I've ever played this more than 2 or 3, 4 times. It's in really nice shape. I've already ripped this, as I've mentioned before in other videos. I've been ripping and or recording. I say ripping, but I'm recording my vinyl to digital and adding everything to my digital archives. And this is just an ongoing, never-ending project that I started 15 years ago. And this is one of the first things I ripped. I had a priority list. You know, I'm trying to work my way through all of my records, and there are thousands of them. But some records I set aside because I wanted to hear them. I don't want to go too long without hearing certain records. And I ripped this a long time ago. I needed to have this. This is how I feel about Peepshow. I need to have it. I want to have it uploaded into my cloud. I want to have all of the important works done quickly. And this is a very important work for me. Peepshow. When I think of when this record came out, at least here in the United States, Peep Show was a big album. Superstition was also a very big album here in the United States because of Kiss Them For Me. That was a big song here. I think Peekaboo was a huge song here too. Back in the 80s, you know, MTV was still playing music and videos. And I remember Peekaboo got played a lot on MTV, especially with those late night alternative programs like Postmodern MTV. Does anyone remember this? Every night, every weeknight, there was a show called Postmodern MTV, and they would show cool shit. And then every Sunday night, you had 120 minutes, which was 2 hours of like really good stuff. Once the 90s clicked over, 120 minutes kind of fell down the shitter. Grunge became a thing, and then all of a sudden that was labeled alternative. And then every time you watched 120 minutes, all you could see was Nirvana and Pearl Jam and that kind of crap. But in the 80s, MTV was still showing good stuff, and Siouxsie and the Banshees got a lot of airplay on MTV. And I remember Peekaboo being one of those songs that they played a lot, even to the point of exhaustion. I remember, as much as I love that track, I remember feeling a little sick of it because MTV was hammering it so much. But now that so many years have passed and I'm able to remove myself from that, when I hear Peekaboo, tracks like Peekaboo, it reminds me of why Peep Show is such a great album. Again, it's got their best pop moments. It's got their best intense moments. It's got their best weird and ambient and moody moments. Everything comes together here. Just a great record. What's your favorite? I would love to hear what your favorite is. I know Siouxsie and the Banshees fans have all kinds of albums spanning all favorite albums, covering all kinds of different eras from them. And what's your favorite? What's your favorite Siouxsie album? Peep Show is mine. Yes. How great is this fucking record, man? I'll pull it out. You know, before I pull it out, I'm looking at the track listing. I'm trying to think of a favorite. I mean, The Killing Jar. How fantastic is The Killing Jar? What? The second track, right after Peekaboo. One of the three singles. There are three singles from this, and I'll show those here. I think, you know, when I look at these tracks, man, there's not a bad song on here. Everything is so good. Rawhead and Bloody Bones is one of those songs that's kind of hard to describe. That's one of those weird ambient tracks that only Siouxsie and the Banshees could pull off. I wasn't sure what I thought when I first heard it when I was a kid, but then it quickly grew on me, and it's become one of my favorites. It's a song that only this band could make work. Just a weird song, but I think maybe Rhapsody. Rhapsody is one of those songs. It's a builder, and it kind of at the time in 1988, it was kind of one of those songs that harkened back to an earlier time for Siouxsie and the Banshees. It's very punk rock, but it's very rhythmic at the same time. It's very intense. Rhapsody, honestly, might be my favorite Siouxsie and the Banshees track because this is my favorite album, and that's my favorite song on this album. And so, yeah, it's probably, arguably, my favorite Banshees track ever. Rhapsody. Do you agree with this? I mean, what a great song, man. Rhapsody could have easily been a single on its own right. It's not very poppy, but it's just a fucking brilliant song. Here's the inner sleeve. You get the lyrics. Most times, if not all times, you got the lyrics with Siouxsie and the Banshees albums. And listen, I do these videos from my memory. Sometimes I'll talk about a band and I'll say, yeah, most of their albums had lyrics on the inner sleeve, and then I'll get multiple comments saying, no, they didn't. They did not have lyrics on most of their albums. I don't want to hear it. I'm doing my best here, okay? Nobody cares. I'm just making a quick aside, a quick statement. Most of the albums, to my knowledge, at least my copies, had lyrics. Maybe you're in a country where they didn't have lyrics. That happened a lot back then. Sometimes, depending on your country, you'd get a plain generic inner sleeve. So I'm doing my best here. I think most Siouxsie albums had lyrics. And if they didn't, I don't want to hear about it. There's the Crew, Steve Severin. We all know Budgie, right? From the Creatures. Anyway, inner sleeve. I'm only going to show this label very quickly. Most of my Siouxsie pressings are US pressings on Geffen. They were on David Geffen's label here in the United States. So most of these records I have are all US issued, and I'm not going to show the labels because they all look like that. Geffen had two speeds when it came to his labels. He had black labels like this, and then he had white labels. And that was it. Nothing much to see. So yeah, this is my favorite Siouxsie album. Absolutely, Peepshow. Just a fantastic record. It really illustrates everything they were good at in a 45-minute record. I know plenty of people will disagree with my assessment that this is their best work, but that's why I have a channel. I get to blurt out opinions, and this is my favorite. But what's yours? I'd love to hear what your favorites are. Here is the opening lead-off single for the album. This is Peekaboo. It's got the promo stamp on it. This is the US edition. This has got the Silver Dollar mix on the A side, which is like a big sprawling 10-minute remix. And then you get the 7-inch version of Peekaboo. And then you get two B-sides. And I wanted to point out, the Banshees were one of those bands where their B-sides were almost always spectacular. Arguably album-worthy tracks. Like, I think, for me, False Face, fantastic. Could have been on the album. If they had repurposed it a little bit to fit with the flow of the album, it could have easily been an album track. These guys and their singles were so good, man. You had to have the singles, too, because of the mixes and the B-sides. And the remix, by the way, is really cool. It's just kind of like this slow, plodding, long extension of the album version, just more dancey, but it's really good. And then, yeah, you get False Face. Catwalk is okay. It's basically just an instrumental track, and Siouxsie is purring and meowing in the background. A very cat-centric song. But you absolutely need to have this. I thought I'd show this. This is a UK remix edition of Peekaboo. This also has a Silver Dollar mix, but it's shorter on the UK version. It's like an 8-minute version here. I think it's just a slightly truncated, edited version of the one you find on the US version. So on the US 12-inch, you get a 10-minute mix version of Silver Dollar mix, and then here you get an 8-minute version. And then you get the Stockhausen and Waterphone mix, which is basically like an even shorter instrumental version. And I can't remember if that is an instrumental of the Big Spender mix. The Big Spender mix is yet another mix that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But in the UK, this got released on a different 12-inch with the same cover as the US edition I just showed, but it has a Big Spender mix on it. This has the Silver Dollar, edited Silver Dollar mix. And then this also has, I think it's False Face, right? Yeah, False Face is the B-side. You don't get Catwalk here, but you got Catwalk on the other UK edition. The United States was usually better. They would compile all the mixes and the B-sides onto one record. In the UK, they would spread them all across different formats, and it was harder to find, but sometimes there'd be extra mixes over there. You had to get all the versions to get all the remixes and the B-sides. But anyway, I thought I'd show that as a curiosity. Speaking as a curiosity piece, this is a promo, a UK promo of Peekaboo. And I hold this up. This is kind of interesting. This is numbered. Yeah, you'll see these were all individually numbered. And I've never seen another copy of this. This is the only one I've ever seen in my life. I don't even remember where I picked this up. I picked this up years ago. This has a mix that I've never seen anywhere else. It's called the Two-Faced mix. It says that it's on both sides, and I'll show the label here. The label says Two-Faced mix, and then you flip it over and it also says Two-Faced mix again on the other side. But that is not true. You get the Two-Faced mix, which is exclusive to this promo 12-inch as far as I know, and then you get the big spender mix on the other side. The Two-Faced mix is almost identical to the more common big spender mix. The Two-Faced mix is slightly different. The intro is a little bit different, and then there's tiny little differences throughout the mix, but they're almost identical. So I don't know what the thinking was there. I guess I don't know. There's so many different mixes and avenues and approaches to remixing. Who knows? But if you're a Siouxsie and the Banshees freak and you like collecting their stuff on vinyl, I would recommend seeking this out. It's got an exclusive remix on it that's only on this promo, so it's kind of fun. This, again, the Killing Jar, this is the US edition. This is the best single from the album, I think, because of the song itself. The Killing Jar is fantastic. You get an extended mix of the Killing Jar. But the real pull of this are the B-sides, man. Something Wicked This Way Comes and Are You Still Dying, Darling? How good are these B-sides? Absolutely fantastic B-sides. Some of their best B-sides. I think with the combination of the two B-sides and the mixes you get of the Killing Jar, because you also get a 7-inch mix, of the Killing Jar, which is a 7-inch mix basically meant the radio remix. The radio remixes would usually be touched up and they'd be more sparkly for the radio and more popified. I actually like the 7-inch mix better than the album version. The extended mix is also very good. The best single from the album, I think, because of those B-sides. God, the B-sides are so good. And this is the US version on Geffen. I'm not sure how the B-sides and the remix is spread out across the UK editions. I don't know. I've never had those, so. Got the promo stamp down here, very common in the United States. I still have my original shrink wrap on this thing. I always thought it was interesting, by the way, that they would stamp these and then shrink wrap them. It's a promo. What are you shrink wrapping it for? I don't know. Probably just easier for the company, the pressing plant to do it that way, I guess. But the best single from their best album, I think. And then ending off this video, I will talk about the third and final single from the album. This is The Last Beat of My Heart. This is a gatefold sleeve, as you can see, and I still have it sealed. I still have this sticker sealing it. A sticker sealed it, and I've never opened this. And I'm leaving it that way. I'm sorry, I'm not opening this. I have this 12-inch as a plain sleeve. It's not a gatefold sleeve, and it doesn't have a sticker. It's the same track listing, the same cover, everything's exactly the same. And I don't know where that is. I apologize. I was looking for that for the purposes of this video, just to show the label and stuff, but I couldn't find it. This is what I have available to me, but I thought this is kind of cool. I thought about breaking this seal open, but I don't know. I do want to see the gatefold, but I'm going to keep it sealed for now. This is The Last Beat of My Heart is a beautiful track. It's I think it's the second to the last song on the album. It's between Rawhead and Bloody Bones and Rhapsody. Beautiful song. It's a ballad. Well, probably their most powerful ballad. I can see why they released it as a single. I think they could have closed their eyes and picked any song from the album as a possible single. But I thought this was a fine choice. The two B-sides are pretty good. El Dia de los Muertos, that's a great song. And then Sunless. They're just kind of, I don't know, there's typical B-sides for Siouxsie and the Banshees. They're excellent. I don't know if they would have worked as album tracks here, but they're excellent in their own right. They stand out as excellent songs individually. Again, I don't know if they would have mixed that well with the rest of the album, but as B-sides here, a great way to end off the single run from the album. This is a fantastic 12-inch. Highly recommend getting all these. If you love Peep Show, I always say this, but I don't understand people having albums and not the associated 12 inches. I don't get it. Especially if there are B-sides. I don't know. This is all part and parcel of the Peep Show package. And I know that's a lot of P's, but that's what Peep Show is. It's a lot of brilliant P's, brilliant music, brilliant artists at the top of their game, at the very tip top of their game. Peep Show. Right here. What is your favorite Siouxsie album? Siouxsie and the Banshees. You can talk about Creatures too if you want, but this is my personal favorite Peep Show album, or Siouxsie album, Peep Show. I think it's just, again, it encapsulates every little thing that they did so well, and it just mixes it all into this stew until it's all interwoven and weaving through each other and working together in harmony. It's just a great album, man. Not a bad moment on here. Siouxsie and the Banshees at their absolute peak. Peep Show. Go listen to this again because you know you want to. See you next time. Bye.